Hi there everyone! So have you heard about Masquerada Songs in Shadows?
Is over when the halls that it has emptied fill once again. This war is far from over.
Masquerada needs to be evaluated on three fronts: what you do, the context of the doing, and why you're doing it. So let's jump right in. Most of your time in Masquerada, listening to the various characters, watching the story unfold before you, running from area to area, and engaging in combat. The combat styles itself like a MOBA. The developers call this tactical action, but I don't know if I would go that far. It's most like League of Legends, Dota, or otherwise, which is novel for a single-player RPG. You have an auto attack and 4 activated abilities that are on cooldown. I guess it's kind of action-y, but it certainly feels more along the lines of whatever you would consider a MOBA-styled gameplay. The combat, though, is novel. I think it misses the mark just a bit because you only have 4 activated abilities, which seems like it's inherited directly from games like League of Legends, but it's not really necessary in a single-player kind of context. The user interface can get really cluttered as there's multiple characters on screen with multiple abilities and all kinds of rings and symbols and diamonds and stuff, so the tactical sense kind of just degrades into spamming abilities and trying to win. There were a few times when I had to use the real-time pause to set up a few strategies, but they were almost always about moving the tank to a position where he could tank and moving the damage dealer out of the fire towards a flank where he could inflict more damage. The combat also is slightly repetitive, in which makes it start to feel shallower as the game goes on. There's not a lot of huge new innovations as you progress. The skill tree is passable, it's serviceable, it's fine, it's not awful or terrific. It's certainly not exciting though, and that's what's kind of disappointing. The one thing though that is a little more exciting is the unlocking of new Masquerines.
Is that a Masquerine? Ages. You must have missed it under all this filth.
And it's raw.
We'll have to find an Artigiani and Fabra to help us touch it up. We can't be seen walking around with it like this.
You intend on keeping it?
Well, I won't tell the registry as long as you don't.
All right then.
I would say this is probably the most role-playing the game get, because you unlock new Masquerines, and the Masquerines are tied to focus abilities. These spice up your strategy as you're trying to figure out what Masquerines work well together and what you like and how they're going to work with not only the focus abilities of your party members, but then also the abilities of yourself and your party members. And this is what keeps Masquerada fresh and engaging in the later parts. There isn't quite enough of it. The game says that it has this kind of stance system which you can use for the primary character who you're going to be controlling most of the time, but I never really found the stances that useful or helpful. I almost always was in one stance. I didn't really ever need to switch between the 3, so it was kind of lost on me. Overall, the action and the combat, unfortunately, it's neither terrific or awful. It's just okay. I don't think it's going to be why you want to go out and play Masquerada anyways. I think the game has greater strengths elsewhere. Make no mistake, Masquerada is a really pretty game with a unique art style. It's got vibrant colors, costumes, and environments. I think the developers 100% nailed the idea of a Venetian style fantasy, which is what they were going for. I think the style sometimes gets in the way to the thematic tones of the plot, but I think that's just personal preference. It's vibrant, it's colorful, and the music and the sound design only accentuate. The music has particularly haunting moments. It never really kind of gets in the way of telling the story. There's a few motifs that are kind of used repeatedly throughout, but I don't really want to spoil that. I think it's something that you as a player are going to want to discover as you go through. The particular note of sound design, and I guess voice acting is a part of it. I don't know, but the voice acting deserves particular commendation because it's terrific. I think it's like the most redeeming quality of Masquerada. Some people might complain that the melodrama in the later half bogs down the voice acting, but I think it's particularly great. I was convinced kind of from beginning to end of every emotion that the actors through the characters are trying to portray, and I think they do an overall marvelous job setting up the scene and the conflict and all of the character art. Kaladin is my particular favorite, but I won't spoil as to why. You'll see.
So, Mariner. Mariner.
Are you trying to say something?
Why do they call you that? Do you sail out onto the belt often?
Not anymore.
Oh, well, you used to?
Before I settled down.
Settle down?
I'm in charge of an orphanage now.
With children?
No, cats and dogs, I'm sure.
Oh, I love animals. What?
Eyes on the road, Toads. Elena, please stop bullying your brother. And Ricardo,
Yes, sir?
just keep going.
So while these elements of Masquerada are great, now it runs into problems because we have to talk about some of the world building and the journal and the other ways that Masquerada tries to tell its story instead of directly through the characters interacting. And this is where things start to unravel at the seams. I think it's linked to some element of the writing, so consider us now somewhere between categories 2 and 3 of our list. And I don't need to get into the details of the plot. My criticism here can be entirely reflected in Act 1, Chapter 1, and here's why. Chapter 1 takes approximately 30 minutes to complete. It's meant to be an introduction to our main protagonist and his immediate quest. And our main protagonist is of no other than Matt Mercer. Cicero, I see you there. I see you there, Matt Mercer. But in these first 30 minutes, in this chapter 1, we encounter 16 unique codex entries and at least 30 unique names of things. We have Contadane, Inspettore, Registry, Runic, Portieri, Alencio, Pale Isle, Crescent Isle, Valencio, Selencios, Verone, Ombre, Elysia, Vigilius, Hall of Variants. What? Like, it's so much fucking shit is going on in the first 30 minutes. There's so many names and there's so many codex entries, but I have no idea what I'm supposed to care about. And the game doesn't give you a really good idea of what you're supposed to care about either. Like, I get it. There's a cool world to explore here. Venetian style fantasy is not something you come across often, but holy friggin' frick, 16 codex entries in the first 30 minutes? Who wants to play a game and open up a journal in the first 5 minutes? Like, no, I want to be playing the game. Sure, codex entries, journal entries, they can be a world building device. Like, I can talk about later why I don't think they're a good one at all, but too much of Masquerada's story is told through its codex and through ham-fisting these pronouns to make us try to figure out that it's like fleshed out and stuff.
Classification of the Medea. Go.
The Medea, save Masenza, are divided into 3 pairs. Physica, Visiva, and, the...
And what?
And,
Eteria.
Sir.
Sir. Apologies, sir. We were distracted.
You know,
Relax.
if stories are meant to be iceberg, Masquerada shows way more than just the tip. I didn't really figure how everything works and what all the names meant and what all the factions were and the history and the da-da-da-da until the final chapter of the game. Okay, like maybe that's just me, and maybe if you read every codex entry again, you'll be able to piece it together before the final hour, but you're spending enough time reading, listening, and watching the story unfold. I don't want to go spend more time reading about the codex entries to understand some sort of obscure fact or name, particularly because it's not important to the story, so like, why are you telling me? It's Masquerada's White Whale. I think if you can get past these elements, you're going to enjoy it, and I encourage you to get past them. And I don't know, maybe if you like 50 million Venetian fantasy names that are thrown at you unapologetically without mercy, kudos to you, because you're going to like Masquerada even more. But all that said, Masquerada's story is a good story. Make no mistake. It makes the whole pronoun and journal thing particularly frustrating, but also bearable. Masquerada's story, though, is linear. You're not going to decide the outcome of the plot or what's going to happen to some of these characters. You're just kind of there along for the ride, and I don't think that's problematic. Perhaps this is most like a JRPG in the sense that you're there to enjoy the good writing and the characters in the story, and you're not necessarily there to make Paragon or Renegade choices. But because I think the writing and the voice acting is so strong, I didn't mind. I was happy to be a participant, or at the very least a witness to what was going on. So I would encourage you to not let that get in the way of enjoying Masquerada. Masquerada's story is a good story. It transitions brilliantly from a murder mystery into something broader, with conspiracies reaching deeper than you expect, with solid character arcs, with good themes, with a solid protagonist, Matt Mercer, that's going to lead you through all of this. And the climax is great, and it ends on a good note, and it makes you kind of ask at least one or two questions, which I think should always be the objective of a story in any game. I don't really want to say more about Masquerada's plot, because I think you'll enjoy it. Personally, I found that there were a lot of similarities with Mass Effect's narrative structure, a game I love, which is why I think Masquerada here has a solid narrative. So I would recommend it wholeheartedly. You can't find many role-playing games these days that have such a strong emphasis on story, at least at the non-AAA level, but also that still have a novel combat system, a unique world and setting, and that's trying to do something new. Masquerada deserves your attention, and I can't help but give it a buddy seal of approval. Go out and play it, it deserves your time. I just wish they Selencios de Contedanes Ombres Verone.
Into the shadows we go.